And welcome to MapleWoodian.com podcast. We have on the phone the legendary Danny Aiello. How you doing, sir?
Pretty good, Joe. How you doing?
Good. I appreciate your time. Of course, we're going to tell everyone we're talking to you because you are going to be at Words Bookstore Thursday. That's March 19th, upcoming Thursday, to talk about your book, I Only Know Who I Am When I Am Somebody Else, which is a great eye-catching title. It came out last year. Late last year, and now you're going to go to Words. Why this book at this time? You had such a great career, obviously, but what made you want to do something to write it all out in this way?
There were times, Joe, in my life when I wanted to look back at my immediate family, the family I grew up as a child with, and unfortunately there's no information on my past whatsoever, only those things that I can remember. Nothing in writing, nothing I can sit down and read and read about, family people who were historically in my family. So I thought, when I leave, I know there's a lot about me as an actor. I've done this movie, I've done that, interviews and so forth. So they can find things out like that. But I wanted them to find more about my family, the things that I could remember as I was growing up. I wanted my 10 grandchildren and others who may not know, anything about my family to know the kind of upbringing I brought. And my feeling is, when I did that, I thought it would act as an inspirational kind of book for those people who may think at the age of 36, 37, 40, if they lose their job or something, that they don't have to think it's all over. With me, I was a union president. I had a very secure position, making money. I was actually the president of local division of the Amalgamated Transit Union, and I was at Greyhound Bus Company for 10 years. I lost that job as a result of a wildcat strike. And Joe, no education. I left school very early on. I went into the service when I was 17. So the point I'm trying to make is, here's a guy uneducated, had a great job, loses it. What does he do next? All right, I accidentally went into acting. I sort of backed into it. It was a luck thing. I was what they call a bouncer at the famous comedy club in New York City on 44th Street called The Improvisation. They gave me a job. They recognized my talent. They made me a bouncer.
Now, for those who don't know, you were born in New York. You grew up in different boroughs, the Bronx, and obviously you had the jobs you mentioned and had been in the Army. And then, so you're a bouncer at the Improv. Is that what kind of led to acting? How did you go from that to your first acting gigs?
It's very interesting. I was there. I used to watch comedians, and certainly I never had any intention of becoming a comedian. We used to call them a monologist at the time. I saw guys start nowhere, doing absolutely nothing with their career, never been on any shows, but yet Bud gave them the opportunity because he recognized they had some talent. He gave them a platform. They performed and became stars. Rodney Dangerfield, David Fry. I mean, I could mention everyone came through the improvisation. Richard Pryor, everything that anyone that you could imagine. When I began there in 1969 or 70, so I saw these guys go on to become things, and how did I get involved? I still didn't say I wanted to be that. That didn't interest me. But one day this writer comes in. He was a neophyte writer. He really hadn't produced anything. He was as new as I was, only he had done some writing. I certainly never did any acting and didn't have any intention of doing anything. He walks over to me one day and he's in the improvisation and said, "Danny, I'd love you to do this play." I said, "I'm not an actor." And he said to me, and I recall vividly, "Yes, you are. You just don't know it yet." And that comment, and he kept pursuing me, telling me to do it. I was nervous. I said, "Am I going to remember the lines?" Guys who've never studied before, that's the first thing they say. How the hell am I going to remember the lines? So what happened was, I said, "All right, let's do it." And 3 of his shows that he had written for me started off Broadway, and each one ended on Broadway, with me doing the lead in them. It was Lamppost Reunion, Knockout, and Wheelbarrow Closers. Now, I must honestly say, if Louis LaRusso II didn't walk over to me and pursue me and constantly badger me about doing it, I wouldn't be whatever Danny Aiello is today. I mean, he is totally the single person more responsible than anyone else for my becoming an actor. And the success, my success that I've had, which I was fortunate to have, that I would blame on myself, because at some point talent had to take over, and I guess there were a lot of people who felt that I had some talent, and bingo, there it went.
Now you
but
played.
My point is, I started from nowhere.
Now, how did you never had any acting, any class, any training in acting, or did that come later, maybe, or not really?
Never. I learned acting, and the reason I didn't go to school is simply because I can ill afford it. I had 4 children at the time.
Oh my God!
I paid rent, and the other reason simply is it's not the other reason. It's a similar reason. I had to earn money, so I was lucky enough to get jobs paying me money while I was learning to act. Because what was I doing? The jobs that I was getting were acting jobs. I was getting acting jobs. How? I have no idea. I don't know what the hell I was doing. I worked on pure energy. And, people used to review me. Critics would say, my God. They used to say, make terminology sense. He's got more energy than Marlon Brando. I didn't know what I was doing, Joe. I couldn't construct a proper sentence if my life depended on it. And here I was on pure energy, getting through on the stage and in the small film roles that I got early on.
Do you think that helped you kind of coming in as someone who didn't really know how to do it and just pick it up, or did you have good directors, or how did you really succeed? You can get on the stage, but you have to keep doing it well, as you did.
Yeah, and I was learning as I was going along. No one taught me anything. I just observed. I'm a person who I can at times. It certainly doesn't appear that way now to you, but I shut my mouth and watch and learn and pick things up. And also, I'm able to do things that I've done in life. For instance, if there's a character that interested me, and that character might have been walking along the street, if I saw his walk, if I saw some weird thing about him, that I would simply someday incorporate that into my character if I thought it was fitting. I had a good imagination, and I was able to sit and observe and watch and learn. And some of the things came instinctively. Much of them came instinctively, I should say. I'm an instinctive actor. And Woody Allen used to say he's a natural. And at the beginning, I considered that an insult when most of the critics reviewing me would say he's a natural. And I put that down as meaning, well, he's not educated. He never studied acting, so naturally it's got to be natural. So, and that's what it meant to me. And now when they call me natural, I love it because that natural ability came as a result of my learning how to properly act. Go to school could have been very helpful to me. Let me put it that way. I certainly don't tell anyone out there, hey, don't worry about it. You don't have to study. You can go out there, baloney. If you can study, if you have time to study, go and study. Continue to study. And, and go on as many jobs as you possibly can, meaning auditions and so forth. It's just that it can happen. Anyone in this business, Joe, if you want to be in this business, you can work in it. You may not be a star. No one can promise you that. But you can work in it. You may be an extra for the rest of your life. And a lot of people I know are very happy. They earn money, not great money, but over a year, if they did about 20 films, they'd be making some money, a pretty good living. But I'm just saying anyone who wants to go into the field can, and there's always a chance of becoming a star once you're in the field.
Now, one of your first big movies was Bang the Drum Slowly, which not only was a great movie and a great part for you, but you were working with Vincent Gardenia, Robert De Niro. I mean, great. How did you get into that movie? What was that big break?
I was at the improvisation, and this guy, Elliot Cooker, who was another actor, he's one of these car owners now, these exotic cars. He's one of the biggest in the world, Elliot Cooker. He's a wonderful actor. He left acting early on, but he used to see me playing softball in the Broadway show league, and I'd have a script under my arm. He never even knew, I was an actor or anything like that. One day he said, Danny, go up to Central Park. They're auditioning for a movie called Bang the Drum Slowly. John Hancock is the director. I didn't know who the hell it was. I went up there. I didn't even know that I could do it, but I went. And John Hancock saw me throw a ball, saw me hit, and said, you got the plot. So I didn't even have to act or say a word. He just saw my ability to play ball, and he wanted as many natural ball players on the field as possible. Now, I was hired as what they call a relief pitcher, as you well know, your audience will know, a relief pitcher. Horsebird, his name was. But I was only supposed to be in a dugout, or in the bullpen where the relief pitchers are. But John insisted that they make me a first baseman. So they made me a first baseman so that I can be on the field actually playing. And that's how it happened, purely by accident. It was my first movie. I had about 20 words in it. And I was playing Vincent Gardenia, who you mentioned, who was like a mentor to me. I loved him. He comes over to me one day. He sees me mumbling with my Yankee uniform, or my mammoth one looked like a Yankee uniform. And I'm rehearsing the few lines I have, and I'm concerned because I never acted in a movie. He said, "What's the matter, kid?" I said, "Well, Mr. Gardenia, I tell you, I know, I'm very apprehensive about this because I know, I'm going to say these lines, and, a lot of people are going to see them, and if I say them dead, if I suck, if I'm on the screen 50 times and I see it, I'm going to suck 50 times. And then he says to me, "Don't worry, Danny, you're probably never going to work again anyway."
Now, did that loosen you up, or did that kind of make you a little nervous?
Vinny is my ace, he loosened the hell out of me, because he was always the joker, Vincent, a brilliant actor, and always the joker. And he and I ended up in 2 movies together, Moonstruck and Bang the Drums.
Now, Moonstruck, and I think I told you before, that is probably one of my favorite movies. And I like it because, first of all, your character, Johnny Camerari, is kind of a different character for you because he's a little goofy.
God, yes.
He's a little off, and kind of, at one point, Vincent Gardenia says to Cher, he's a big baby, and his character is kind of a big baby. What did you think about that role and how you went into that ensemble?
Well, I come from a tough street, kind of existence. And in my neighborhood at the time, if you played that kind of character, they laughed at you like you were a major wimp. I took it very personal. I told Norman Jewison, the director, I said, "Oh, Norman, I hate this." Well, he said, "What are you kidding?" He said, "I love it. It's oh my God." I said, "Please." I said, "Norman, are you kidding? I got to walk through my neighborhood. When they see me in this picture, they want to smack me." But it turned out to be very important because they saw I can do, to a certain degree, situation comedy. And it certainly put me in a different category of money thereafter because when they know you can do that, it benefits.
Right. You would always play these, these kind of tough Italian New York guys. And then here's a New York guy, he's an Italian guy, but he's kind of funny. And I always thought you really stole the scenes you were in because the character was such a kind of complex character.
Yeah, it was a wonderful movie, and Cher, I learned a lot about Cher. I was not particularly a Cher fan. I didn't know that much about it. I knew her with Sonny Bono. I used to watch her on television. I thought she was cute, and so forth. But I never really got into it. When I met her, she was such an entirely different human being than I thought she was. She was like my sister. She was like a great Italian kind of girl, you know what I mean, growing up with family, but when her public persona is so different than what she is, she's anti-drug, but because of the guys that she married who were very pro into drugs, most of them, with the exception of Sonny Bono,
sure,
you would think, you would think that she might be into that, but she isn't. Her thing was, I used to say that because I felt like an older brother. I would say, "Why do you only go out with young boys?" And she went out with young kids, and she said, I could say that because, like I said, I was like a relative. She said, "Don't ask me out." I said, "What do you mean they don't ask you out?" I said, "You're beautiful." He said, "No, they're intimidated by me. They're afraid to ask me out." So, and that was the reason that she gave me. She's a great girl. When you saw her without makeup, and many times I saw her without that, she's an entirely different person. When she's got, her behind showing and not a proper fabric over it, she's performing on the stage, she's entirely someone else. You know what I mean? She's like me. I only know who I am when I am somebody else.
Now, I read in the beginning of your book, you talk about sitting in the audience, the Oscars in 1990. You were up for Best Supporting Actor for Do the Right Thing, but you talked about how you didn't really feel comfortable in that setting until then. Talk about that and why that's the title.
Yeah, you know, Joe, it's true. Number one, I was the type of guy that if I got an award, I would say, how good is it if I got it? So many awards that I've been fortunate to get, Emmys and so forth, Drama Critics Awards and so forth, every time I got one, it cheapened the award for me. I used to look at these awards like they should be put on a pedestal, but once I got them, I said, oh, my God. And how did the title come out? The guy by the name of J.J. Grey, G-R-E-Y, a great soul singer from down south. He's got albums out. He is just absolutely fascinating. I recorded some of his songs. One of the songs was something like the title I just mentioned. So I brought it home to my wife, and I recorded the song, actually. I brought it home to my wife, and Sandy's listening to it, and she said, that's you. I said, what do you mean? She said, that's you. You don't know who the hell you are. And that's what I go to Simon & Schuster, and I said, this is the title I want. I only know who I am when I am somebody else. They said, no, no, no. And then the vice president eventually came around and said, no, you got the title. And it turns out to be probably the most glamorous thing about, before reading the book, that you hear that title and it gives you the feeling, what the hell is this about? The problem with me is that I didn't know who I was. The only time I was sure of who I was is when I played a character. I knew the words I was going to speak. I knew the situation. I knew the family I developed in my mind. So I was assured of what I had to do in life that day when performing a character. But in life in general, I wasn't very sure of who I was. Was I a pool hustler? Was I a fighter? Was I a crook? These are things that I did in my life that I often said, who am I? What am I?
Do you think that's the way you feel now as an actor?
Yeah, I think I'm a good person. I think I'm a family man. I've always been that. I'm not a party guy. I hate drugs. I put it down. And they say in the 70s I lost a lot of movies because of my hatred for drugs, because I became very vociferous in that area. I would go on television, not for that purpose, but they would interview me and inevitably ask me about drugs. And I would say things like, if anyone offered me drugs, I'd bust their mouth off, that kind of thing. So it was recorded quite clearly to those people who were doing drugs in the industry, and certainly wouldn't hire me, because the most uncomfortable situation is if you're doing it, you know what I mean? If you're doing it, why hire a guy who isn't?
You really think that you lost some roles because of that?
Oh,
people
absolutely.
Really?
No question.
Interesting.
No question in my mind. Absolutely. I'm not whining, because I did a lot of roles. I did over 90 movies, but my feeling is I felt I lost out on some wonderful roles that I might have been able to do well. They were the kinds of roles that I've been doing, and those roles because of that. Now, someone may come over and say, you're whining. I don't whine. I'm telling you what I feel is factual, and I put it in the book.
Any roles that we would know about? Anything you want to share, specifics that you either turned down or couldn't have taken?
If I did that, Joe, then I would name the director, the specific director.
I see. You don't need to do that.
Do that, and because many of the people did it, but there are numbers of roles, But there were a couple of guys I knew was imbibing quite a bit in drugs, and I thought it adversely affected me. The point is, I'm not a guy who says, oh, you got to give me a part. But if you're a great director, I pray that you would give me the opportunity to paint me with your brush on your canvas. You see, it makes me that much better. You know what I mean?
Excellent.
I worked with a great, Norman Jewis and Paul Mazursky, great directors. I had the opportunity to work. Francis Coppola. I worked with Spike Lee. I want to work with what is considered the best. I worked with some of the greatest foreign directors, and I knew they felt I was worthy of it. They came to New York to seek me out in so many movies. I've worked with foreign directors well. My feeling is I think I should have been what they call an Italian actor from Italy, because those are the kind of movies I love to do, those real family-oriented things, real stories, I don't like excuse my expression, the bullshit stories. I like stories about real people.
Now, the one movie I have to ask about, obviously, is Do the Right Thing. You were nominated for an Oscar. Now, Sal, who owned the pizza place, he was a kind of a complex character. He was a very Italian family man. But he was not racist, although he was dealing with a racist situation. How did you get that role, and what did you think of that? Probably one of the most difficult roles you had to play, I would think, or at least stories to be in.
The way he had written it originally was not anything I was interested in doing.
Oh, what was that?
Spike Lee. It was, to me, it wasn't the full realized character. I knew who this character was. Mm-hmm. I knew him. That character was me at a time in my life. I knew who he was, and I knew guys like him. But when he captured him, he didn't capture him in a manner which I thought. I went to Spike, and I said, Spike, you want me to do the movie? I said, please allow me to have some significant input in the writing. And then I've never asked anyone else to do this in any movie. I've done writing before. And I said, but Spike, I will suggest things. If you don't like them, you toss them out. But allow me the opportunity of suggesting things. And he said, you got it. So, you know, the big speech where at the end when I said I built this place,
right.
I wrote that.
Oh, really? That was your writing?
Speech. That was all my writing.
What was the character like before that you didn't like about? Just that he wasn't involved?
He was like a plantation owner. He was like a bullshit character. I wanted a complex character. I didn't want a nice guy. I wanted a guy that was literally a pain in the ass that you're going to have difficulty figuring. Who is this guy, you know? Now, you came up so beautifully. You said he isn't a racist, and I never believed for a moment that he was.
Right.
Not for a single moment. Spike thought he was.
So he originally was supposed to be a racist character.
Yeah, I said Spike is. And the thing that shocked everybody was the white guy gets the nomination for the Academy Award.
Well, I think that says a lot about the role and about how his character... Now, do you think he turns racist at the end because of what happens, or is he just... how do you think that affects him?
Well, he intends to rebuild. The interesting thing is we didn't have arguments, but we did have discussions. Spike and I used to say to Spike, when I'm yelling, I built this place with my bare hands. He said, boy, you're going to get it back with insurance. Now, my initial thing
That's a great line, yeah.
Yeah, but I said, you can't win. It's like Vietnam, Bed-Stuy. What are you talking about insurance? You can't get insurance there. If your life depended on it, you can't get store insurance. You're there on a wing and a prayer. Mm-hmm. You follow me? If your joint gets burnt down, there's only one way you're going to rebuild it. If you go into your pockets and rebuild it. Because giving you money. So we used to argue about that. And there was one of the lines I said, you cannot, this ain't about money. This is about I built this place with my bare hands. Every goddamn socket. And the other line I wrote, which I feel got me the Academy Award nomination, is they grew up on my food.
That is a great line and a great commentary on what this guy had to do. He's in this neighborhood, and he's doing his part. And it was also a great moment of, as you know, in New York racial times where there was, you know, Howard Beach and some of these other things were happening in that 80s time. But what do you think of Spike Lee? He's gotten kind of good and bad reviews by people. I'm a big fan, but you worked with him.
Yeah, well, he's a good buddy of mine, Spike. You know, let me tell you how he hits the top of the totem pole in my life, okay? The acting thing, you know, because he provided for me the vehicle that got me my first Academy Award nomination. I got an Academy Award for a short film with called Lieberman in Love, and which won for a short film. I was the star of, I played Joe Lieberman. But what he did, my son Danny died of pancreatic cancer.
Yes, I know. It's terrible.
Stunt coordinator in 2010. And we're sitting there, we're at the Campbell Funeral Home in New York City. And God knows everyone was, every actor you can imagine that I knew, fans, respects, not so much because of me, but they all knew Danny.
Yeah.
Because he stunted, doubled, and coordinated. What Spike comes. I don't know Spike's there. I'm in the front, you know, sitting on the side by myself, looking straight ahead where my son was. And someone tells me that Spike walks down, stops, and goes back. Walks down, stops, and goes back. Third time he comes down, he kneels next to me, and he said, Danny, would you mind if I do say something? I said, no, of course not, Spike. He gets up and does a eulogy for my son.
Oh, my Lord. Just on the spot.
just on the spot.
Oh,
I
my
was
God.
shocked. Now, it took him great courage to do it now because you knew that it was hard for him. He came down 3 times. So you know he was debating, should I do this, should I do this, should I do this? And he did it. And he talked about my family because my son Rick was in the movie, Danny was stunting in the movie. It was just,
Your son Rick was in Do the Right Thing?
Yeah, he strangled Radio Raheem.
Oh, my gosh, okay.
He was the
full family affair. That's right, I think I did remember hearing that.
Yeah, he was in it, and Danny was my stunt coordinator and everything, Hold just a second, Joey. My buddy Louie Boldenary is getting in the car because we're rehearsing Capone right now. I'm doing Al Capone.
Now tell us about that.
Joe, I'm doing Al Capone, and it's a play with music written by Robert Mitchell.
Oh my God!
It's a one-man play that is going to knock you on your ass.
Where is this? This is on Broadway, and when does it happen?
It's not anywhere yet. We're going to workshop it. What we're doing now, we have been working on it for a long time, but I had to separate myself from it for an extended period of time until we're ready to go again. Now we've been rehearsing now for about 2 weeks, and it is absolutely fantastic. It's multimedia. It's the period of Al Capone. It's the last 3 days of his life. And the interesting thing is you're going to find out things about him that you never knew existed. It's just a wonderful piece, and I'm very excited about it.
Now, do we have to lose you here, or can you stay with us for?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm near the rehearsal hall right now. Go ahead.
No, we'll let you jump off. The last thing I want to ask is, you did obviously mention other directors. I know you do a small tribute in your book to Paul Mazursky. What was it about him that you wanted to give him some credit in the book?
Because he felt as I did, and that's not the reason I loved him, but he felt that acting is a joy, not painful. Now, Actors Studio, for instance, they wanted me to come in and be a member. Now, just to come in, not to audition, just to do a scene, and I would be a member. I went there to audit the class. I saw so much pain. I saw people like geez, I don't even know how to say it. They were like laying down, like in such pain on the floor before actually performing. I know I'm exaggerating to a certain extent, but when I saw that, I said, I can't be here. And, it was like a Svengali thing. You had a teacher that first tore you down before he can build you up. I didn't want that bullshit.
So acting should be a joy, not
a joy.
Difficulty.
How could it not, Joe? How could it not be a joy?
Oh, that's a great
You're
viewpoint.
getting up in the morning and you're playing someone outside of yourself. You may play a doctor, a lawyer. You may be Jewish. You may be Italian. You may be this. You've got the opportunity to play so many different people, escape out of yourself, and get paid for it.
That doesn't hurt, right?
Not at all.
Now, I have to ask you quickly, what was your favorite role and your favorite experience in any of your movies?
29th Street was my favorite role. If you haven't seen it,
no, tell people about that.
I suggest it's Anthony LaPaglia plays my son. It's a father and son movie.
Oh.
The other movie is a movie called Once Around with me and Richard Dreyfuss. That's a father and daughter movie. Tell your audience to see those 2 pictures. I promise you, they will love them.
Why were those your favorites?
Well, they're favorite because they were very much like a Danny Aiello. One character was Joe Bella, in Once Around, and the other one, 29th Street, was a different name. They were the same kind of guys, but they were they were wonderful. But the best experience I had on motion picture, besides working with Paul Mazursky, was working with Paul Newman. I called my mom. I'm in the camper, and I said, Mom, I'm doing a movie with HUD. My mother said, who's HUD? I said, Mama, HUD is Paul Newman.
Was that in Port Apache?
Yeah, that's the first thing I did with Paul. What a wonderful man. What a wonderful
And I can't
guy.
let you go without asking about Godfather 2. You had one of the key lines in that movie, the Michael Corleone. What was that like to be in that movie and under Coppola?
Well, Coppola was directing me in the scene. I wasn't intimidated, but I was somewhat concerned because he's like the greatest director doing The Godfather.
Absolutely.
And I'm doing a scene where I have to strangle Mike Gazzo. His name is Piantangeli. I come
Great
into
moment.
a bar, I put a garrote around his neck, and I choke him and drag him into the phone booth. I'm supposed to kill him, but he don't die.
Right.
But before I dragged him out, I had no line. All I had to do was do the chore, go in, grab him, and pull him out. No lines. For some reason, I said, Michael Corleone says hello. Francis says, cut. What'd you say? And now I'm thinking, oh, God, what did I do? I said, he said, what'd you say? I said, I don't know. I think I said, Michael Corleone says hello. He said, keep it in.
Well, that ended up being a great line because later on when he thinks Michael turned on him, that's the reason, because of that moment. Plus, it was a great kind of rough, you're about to die, and here's the guy who ordered it, and you go. I mean, how did you come up with that? It just came to you?
I have no idea. There was no plan, nothing. It was just I felt I have to say something here. If I'm going to kill somebody, I have to say something, and the words came out of my mouth. That was it. That
is amazing. Well, we will let you go. Danny Aiello, the legendary actor, you'll be at Words Bookstore Thursday night, March 19th, with I Only Know Who I Am When I Am Somebody Else, which is a great piece of work, great stories, great history on you, and just a joy, sir, to talk to you, and hopefully we can see you again there.
Joe, if you come over the Words, make sure you introduce yourself.
Absolutely, and then we'll look for you at Al Capone, too.
I want you to know something, Joe. We're going to have a lot of fun. I'm bringing tapes, acting tapes.
Right,
so
that's another thing we heard about. This is not just a book signing. Tell about how it's going to be a whole visual.
Q&A, visual, everything. You're going to see me sing and videos.
We didn't even get into your singing, because I know it's a big thing, too, that you do.
Yeah, well, you may not tolerate that. But
no, it's beautiful.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, sir, very much, and we will talk to you again. I, appreciate the time. It's most great honor for us.
Thank you, Joe, very much, and for me, too.
Be well.
Bye-bye now. Bye-bye, you too.